Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's show. I am with what I feel fairly confident in referring to as showgirl Mike Ames. How are you doing, Mike?
Well, I like to think of myself as lazy boy Ames, but didn't see that one coming, did you? I don't think. Yeah, I'm actually very good. Thank you very much. Yes, if I was any better, I'd be twins. And don't say you look like you're having twins because that's not funny anymore. Just so as you know.
A little funny.
Yeah, a little bit funny. Yeah. Anyway, here we are. Look,
Little...
hey, look what we're talking about today.
Yes. So today we are going to be talking about how being lazy can be great for your business. Now, Mike, I've got a bone to pick with you on this one because I seem to remember a substantial part of my childhood being told to stop being so lazy, get up and clean my room. So how come it's okay to be lazy when it's your business, but it's not okay to be a lazy teenager with books all over her room?
Because it just is. The thing is, you see how I dealt with that. Yeah. The thing is, so don't get confused between lazy and work ethic because they're not the same things really. So I suppose they cross over a little bit, but we're not talking about lazy in the sense that you don't care and you just get away with anything. We're talking about lazy in that you don't feel the need to do everything, to be involved in everything. There's nobody can do something as well as you can do it. You know what I mean? So I hate that. This is the one. I hate that one. I really hate that. You know, it's like, that may be true, but I don't care. It's rubbish. For those people who have ever cooked with my wife and Kirsty, Princess Kirsty's mother, they will know that that statement is not true. That was a trick. No, but the point is that
you said that.
Yeah, she never watches the show. It's fine. The point is what we're talking about here. Let's be very honest. This is a really serious point. You're running a business. It's probably quite small. Maybe it's only you. So there is nobody else to do anything. Question is, how long are you going to be like that? Because I was gifted by whoever gives gifts out at birth. Then I'm very ambitious and equally lazy. So I want to do great things. I just don't want to do it myself. It's like a big thing with me. I want other people to do as much as possible. Now, when you start off a business, of course, there's no one to delegate to. All right, then. So you've got to involve people outside of your business. You've got to build a virtual business, really. And I think that's a mentality, because every time you give something to somebody to do, whether it's somebody in your business, delegate it to them, or whether you engage somebody outside your business, a supplier, to do something for you, there is a risk. The risk is that they'll do it differently and therefore wrong to you. And personally, I won't hold you that.
As a business owner, though, you know, I've built my business up and it's my baby. It's something that I love. It's something I put a lot of sweat and tears in. So, yeah, I mean, as a business owner, I don't want people to do things wrong. Is that how is that a wrong thought?
Okay. Before I'm going to answer that question, actually, weirdly, but before I do that, could people watching just put in the comments, if you don't mind, whether you actually like delegating and letting things go, or whether you prefer to do them yourselves. It's not a judgment. It's just I'd like to know. So if you could put a comment or two, that would be awesome. And also, you could also put as well, if you outsource in your business, you outsource, particularly if you're a small business. I'd like to see what you do around that. Right. So the deal is I was always told if somebody does something 80% the same way as you would do it, that's good enough. Right? That is good enough. And I think it's a really important thing to recognize that there's a big difference between your way of doing things and the absolute right way of doing things. You know, what interests me is that quite often 20% different, it's actually better. Like I delegate all the time. And I see people do things and I think that's very good, actually. I would never have thought of that. So if you're a bit of a control freak and have to be involved in everything and a busy person, then you don't get to see that. That's not something that, because things have to be done your way. And that's not the right thing to do. Seriously, it absolutely isn't. It's not scalable. If you want to try and grow a scalable business, I got all excited then, couldn't speak. I know.
Scalability is your thing, isn't it?
If you want to grow a scalable business, you need to be able to delegate. I think it was J.C. Penney the American retailer, J.C. Penney, who once said, the most seminal moment in my business career was when I discovered I couldn't do it all myself. And that wasn't doing the jobs himself, because he's got people in his stores and things. It's when he realized he couldn't manage and rule by himself. He needed to let power go. And that's when, of course, his business shot up into the stratosphere. So I think that's a really important point, to be honest.
Yeah. And I suppose the other thing to make on that point as well is that when you're doing that, when you're still growing as a business, then, fine, it's working, but it's when you start to plateau, which everybody gets to that point in their business where their business sort of starts to not stagnate necessarily, but the profits aren't as steep anymore. You're the bottleneck now. So when that happens, you're almost forced into learning how to delegate, because that's really what we're talking about here, isn't it? It's mostly about delegation today.
It's two things, really. It's about delegation so you can scale.
Yeah.
And it's about developing your people. Those two things go hand in hand. They're very intertwined. So we always think about developing people as training, so we train people. And to a certain extent, that is true. But in actual fact, development comes from delegating and letting people fail. I mean, that's the point, because that's when they really learn. And if you don't let them fail, if you hold everything in, then they're never going to get that opportunity, and that's going to stop them from developing, really.
I mean, I understand that, because failure is exactly how you grow. Like when you learn to walk, you fall over 1,000 times, and then finally you manage to do it properly. But again, I'm playing devil's advocate, Mike, against you. I know you like a little bit of pushback, so I'm giving it you. So as a business owner, especially at the moment, the last year has been rough. I need my business to be running at peak. And if people are failing left, right, and center, that's going to sort of come back on me badly, or it's going to affect my client relationship. So yes, I understand that people need to fail, but I don't want them to fail in a way that affects my business. So how am I supposed to balance the two?
Of course not. And that's a very good point. Failure costs two things normally. It costs time and money. Normally that's what happens. So somebody makes a mistake. It's going to take time to unpick it, put it right, do it again properly. I get that. Often there's a financial loss or penalty or something attached to that failure. And that's a fact. So I get that. And if you're a small business and you don't have a lot of time and you don't have a lot of money, you can't be failing, as you said, left, right, and center. Of course you can't. So you've got to pick and choose your battles. You've got to pick and choose the opportunities where you're prepared to fail. What we're not saying here is every time you delegate to somebody, they fail. No one's saying that.
Because that's abdication, isn't it? There's a difference between delegation and abdication, right?
Abdication,
just throwing at something.
Yeah, you just get rid of stuff, basically. You just get rid of it. That's not what I'm talking about here. Delegation is a very, very intricate skill to learn to do it properly. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we haven't heard back yet, I'm going to get the greatest delegator in the world to come on the show and talk to us about how he does it. He is awesome at it. And if he can come and share some of his tips and skills, that would be brilliant. Otherwise, we'll have to wing it ourselves, I suppose. But the point with delegation is a lot more than just saying, could you do this, please? If you want to guarantee success or you want to minimize the risk of failure. So no, you don't just want to let people fail willy-nilly all over the place. Pick and choose your opportunities for them to succeed, and therefore the opportunities for them to fail. And use everyone, make everyone precious. Make sure that the person that does something learns by that. Because delegation, or in fact, this whole thing about personal development, it's about learning new things, trying them out in a safe environment, and not having your ass kicked if and when you fail. And let's face it, we all fail doing new things. But the lazy person is okay with that. Well, I am, because they think, well, they might fail a couple of times, but eventually they'll get it right. And I don't have to do that anymore, whatever it is. We had a meeting this morning with Peter, and he's come up with this great idea for a new course. I won't bore you with the details, but it's a course that we already sell to lawyers and accountants. And we're going to give it away for free. And he's talking to me about it. And I said, well, you should do that. You and Kirsty should do that. A little look on his face. It was like, oh. And then it's like, well, yeah, of course I will. Yeah, because that's Pete, isn't it, really? Yeah, I hope he's watching the show. Would be funny.
He is happy.
But the point is yeah, because will that be better or worse than if I do it? I don't know. It might be better. Who knows? I'd get it to a certain standard. I can pretty much guarantee that. You may do it better or worse, but I don't have to do it. And if it's not very good, you'll fix it. You know, what's my favorite management saying, Kirsty? See if you can get this right.
Oh, is this the Mike Ames quote, which is "There's nothing you can break that I can't fix"?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. As a manager, I love that one. We're going to come to comments in a minute because we've had
we've got loads going on.
Well, that is my absolute favorite. As a manager, look him in the eye and say, "There's nothing you can break that I can't fix," and mean it, because it gives them the confidence, that they may break it, they may fail, but that's okay, because that's partly expected. But if they do, they're doing it in a way that somebody will look after them. I promise you will get so much more for people if you do that. Massively so. Let's go to comments first.
We've had some excellent ones. Nikki, thank you. I've decided, because I can't combat Mike's shirts, I'm going to combat it with headwear. So that's the way forward on this. Pete is watching. He's here, and he said that, and this is sort of true. Someone who works with Pete, he does struggle to delegate, but he tries really, really hard. You know, you've definitely improved, and I think that's something that Nikki also echoed here. Is that it's not a skill you just have or don't. It takes practice, and you will fail at delegating, and you will then succeed again. It's something to learn with, right?
Yes, you will. You will indeed, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. It's almost like that teach a man to give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. You know, if you have to keep diving in and fix something for people, then you'll have to continually do that. If you say, right, we're going to get this right now, and you're doing it, they really take ownership for something then, if you do it in that way. Massively so.
Okay. This is an interesting one from Gavin, because I know how much of a fan you are of processes.
Yes.
What do you think about this?
Yes, Gavin, 100 times yes. Yes, and not just processes. What about, looking for processes? What about tools? What about techniques and things that you can learn? What about people that you can engage with to do some stuff? Yeah, absolutely. You know, what do they say? They all say that the other saying I like is that all progress is down to the unreasonable person, because the reasonable person encounters a situation that they don't like and says, well, it's not really what I want, but I'll be okay with that. I'll work to that. The unreasonable person says, no, I'm not having that. That's not what I'm having. And so they're the person that generates the change. And it's exactly the same in this situation, is if you always pick it up with someone and make it work and are kind of okay with the way it is, then you'll never really improve. If you're constantly looking for a way that you can do less every day and still get the same results, my God, your business will shoot through the roof. Thank you, Gavin.
It's genius way. We've got another one here from Paul, which I really like. So we delegate to experts and professionals or employees, but we retain what we're experts in. So you get rid of the stuff that you don't like and that you're not, because running a business or being in business, there's parts of a job that naturally come to you, right? Yeah. So very often, if you own a business, especially if you've been in recruitment, you're normally very good at sales, but then sometimes that doesn't go so well with people management or vice versa. So what you would do is you play to your strengths, and then you encourage other people to take the bits that either you don't like or don't excel at, right?
Well, exactly. I often get well, thank you for that, Paul. I often get asked, who's the first hire I should make? It's a good question, really. You're one-man band, starting up, doing okay now. What's the first hire? I say the first question is, what do you want to get rid of? That's the first question, really. And if what you want to get rid of is something you need to outsource, well, outsource it then. You know, so we picked up a piece of work recently. Pete does content coordination for people. We picked up a piece of work recently from a one-man band, one-woman band, I should say. And there's only her, and she wants to ramp up the content, but she doesn't like doing it. She's not into it. So she wants to get rid of that first, because that, rightly or wrongly, is part of her business development strategy. So the question isn't, necessarily who should I hire first? The question is, what do I want to get rid of first? Because you're lazy. That's good. Lazy is good, I think.
I'm loving this lazy is good thing. If only as a teenager, I'd had the same thought. So here's an interesting one, Mike. So letting people fail is okay as long as you ultimately know that you're responsible for that. How do you feel about that statement?
100%, yeah. Two things about this, and thank you, Rob. Two things about this. First of all, it depends what you mean by responsible. If you mean something's going to go wrong and you then put the finger at them and say, it's your bloody fault, isn't it? Why did you do that? This is not good. That's not responsibility at all. If you're saying, well, that didn't work out, did it? Let's figure out why that is and put it right. And let's see if we can all learn lessons from that. But bearing in mind that you probably knew it was going to fail anyway before they did it. Right? You already knew that. If you're not comfortable with the failure that is going to ensue, you need to fix that, because you are, as Rob says, responsible. But I think they have to take responsibility, and will take responsibility, if they know that they're the ones who are making the call on this one.
Right.
So if the book always stops with the manager, then they're kind of, well, he said do this or she said do that. If you're saying to them, well, what do you think we should do then? Okay, let's do that. Okay. Right. And you can guide people, and we'll talk about it in a second that you can guide people, but that's the bottom line, really. So Rob's quite right. It's about responsibility, but that authority and responsibility in equal measures in the same person, because that's when success comes. Someone is responsible to do something, and they have the authority to do that thing, and you will look after them if it doesn't work out very well. I mean, I'm not talking about here, by the way, by negligence. Someone is slapdash. That's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
If someone is capable of doing something and said they were going to do something, and they can do something and they don't do it, that's a slightly different conversation.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here is someone says, I'm going to do this. They do it the best as they can, and they've done it the best they can, and you still don't get the result. Well, yeah, okay, that's different. We need to sort that out.
Yeah, there's a difference between being inexperienced and being inept, right?
Yes.
So if the reason that they made a bad decision is lack of experience, and they sort of needed to go through that to learn, why it didn't work, then that's fine. But if they either aren't very good at their job, or if they didn't try very hard, if they kind of half-assed it, then that's a completely different conversation, right?
Yeah, it's slapdash, and we wouldn't accept that. You can make the same. You can make a mistake once. What do they say? Make a mistake once.
Fool me once. No, you fool me once.
Yeah, make a mistake. I'm going to change the adage, but make a mistake once, it's your fault. Make a mistake twice, it's mine. The other thing as well, I read a thing saying the other day, which I really liked. It's one of those kind of old Arabic things or something. You never learn anything from the second kick of the mule. And what that means is, probably figure it out, is that the first time the mule kicks you, think, I probably won't stand there again. I won't do that. The second time, no, there's nothing new to learn. You're doing the same mistake again.
Made the same mistake twice.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it is. Can I ask a question as well to people watching? Have you ever had a boss that's either let you fail, and therefore what happened? Did you grow with that? Or alternatively, did you have one who was very smothering and controlling and stopped you from experimenting and doing what you needed to do to grow? And maybe you could share whether it was one or the other. Really interested to see what people have got to say on that.
Yeah. So I do actually have an excellent question from Sam, because I know this is sort of what we're going to be going into now, because as always with this show, I like to make sure that we leave our viewers with something tangible that they can go away and they can implement and they can do. And this is a big question. So I want to make people fail. Well, I want to make people fail is a weird way of doing it, but I want to allow, my team to grow. And part of that is letting them fail. So how do I do that in a safe environment that makes sure my business stays strong, but that they grow? Okay,
I can answer that. And it ties in with the three things that we're going to talk about. So thank you, Sam. Hope you're doing well. Nice to hear from you, by the way. The whole point of when a piece of work needs to be done, or a task needs to be done, or something that you're going to delegate comes up, you must know what that is. You must know the consequence of failure, obviously, and you must understand the percentage likelihood of failure, whether you do it or whether they do it. That's part of being a manager, a leader. You must understand that. Now, if the consequence of failure is too high, then don't let them fail. Either do it with them the first time so you can be there all the time. They lead, but you're literally like 3 centimeters behind them so you can catch things if it goes wrong. That's one way to do it. Or let them fail in an area which it doesn't really matter. It's not going to cost you that much. Or you can afford a delay of a couple of days or whatever it is, in exchange for that person growing in stature and knowledge and experience. So it's about you as a manager understanding the consequences of failure and then making a call on that. Okay, interesting. Okay, so we have had some responses to your question, Mike. Quite a few, actually. Okay. So Gavin's come through and he said he's had both. Pete's definitely had several bosses. Can you censor what Pete says, just in case, I don't. Obviously, I only put the good comments up. But I mean, you are one of the best at this. Pete and I are constantly put in positions where we're making decisions of we're going, is this right? And you're going,
And we learn quickly. I'd say that. Nigel, again, this relates back to your point, Mike. Bosses let me fail, but there when you did. Rob's a maverick.
If you should make people feel that, if they jump into the abyss, they've actually got wings, right? And you're there to help them in case those wings fail. Honestly, what a great metaphor that is.
Rob, absolute maverick.
What about when I was captain of the Woods polo team, though, Rob? What about that? Huh? Ooh. Back in the day, yeah.
And then Sam, interestingly, has put 80% of his bosses have smothered him. And I'd be intrigued as to see how long you stayed at those companies with those bosses, because I don't like being smothered in any case, whether it's personal or professional relationships. So I'd be running the other way.
I think that's very common because people are afraid to let people fail because the consequence is back on them, and B, they just don't want it to happen because they don't want to lose the time or the money, So I'm not saying it's right, but there you go.
All right, Mike. Right. So let's move on to what we can do. So how do we do this? How do we delegate properly? How do we make ourselves lazy in our businesses?
Number one, we do that. We learn to delegate properly. It's an art form. You don't come out of the womb knowing how to do this. I don't mean the living womb either. I know a great joke about that for another time. Anyway, so we don't come into the world knowing about this stuff, do we? You have to learn it, and it's a really intricate skill to delegate properly. If we can get Mr. Delegator on, honestly, it'll blow you away. But whatever, learn to delegate. Yeah. Learn the 4 T's, learn, all this stuff really, and understand how you can actually get the most from people. Massively important.
Okay, perfect. So that's number one. What's number two?
This is a big one. As I said, I don't have many skills, and I don't. You feel free to criticize me on that one, Kirst. Okay. Pete? Okay. I don't have many skills, but I can choose good people, and I can create an environment where they can be fabulous, and I'm okay at that. And part of that is understanding what they are capable of. And often cases, in fact, almost always, you can see it better than they can see it. You know that they can do more than they are doing. They're capable of more. That is the sign of a real leader, a leader of people that can get the most out of them. You just think they're saying, "Oh, I don't think I can do that." And you're thinking, "Yeah, I know you can." Right. And so it's basically understanding how far outside of their comfort zone you can move them. If you move them too far, they'll crash and burn, and it's just going to detrimentally affect their confidence and set you back. If you don't move them out far enough, they won't develop, and they'll feel, as Sam said, they'll feel smothered, and eventually they leave because that's what happens. So you've got to be, as the leader, that judge of what they're capable of. Massively important.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make as well, is the comfort zone is a real thing, and you never grow inside your comfort zone, but it's comfy there. It's nice and warm and snuggly, and there's like pillows everywhere. But I feel like there's 2 levels outside your comfort zone. There's that next level where, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's sort of exciting, and you know that you're growing, and it's fun, and a little bit nerve-wracking, but still good. And then there's the holy mother of everything that's in the world. This is terrifying. I hate it. I hate going to work because they're making me do this horrible thing that I don't want to do. That's a different level.
That is true, but the truth is somewhere between those two. Weirdly, you remember that time when early on, and I was invited to go and do a talk somewhere, and I couldn't go, but I wanted the talk to go ahead. So I said, "Well, you'll have to do it then." Do you remember that?
The day before it was happening.
Yes, I do. That's right. But something cropped up and I couldn't go. Can you just recount to the viewers kind of just a part of that, really, and how it turned out in the end? Because I'd be interested to see again.
I'm pretty sure I went, "What?" And you went, "Yeah, you'll be fine." So we sat down and had, I think, an hour meeting at like 6 o'clock at night, because I had to leave at 9 o'clock in the following morning to do it. And then I got down there, and I smashed it. Let's not lie, guys. Absolutely smashed it. Right. I was on fire that day. And after that, I'm pretty relaxed about it, because, once you either fail, in which case you know what not to do again, we would have done more prep, or we would have done different things, or you absolutely smash it out of the park and your confidence goes, which is excellent.
And that's what we look for. If you want to develop people so they achieve like outstanding things, you won't do it by smothering them. You do it by building their confidence, as equally you build their skills and knowledge. We train people for that. Fine. How hard can that be? But your job isn't that. You can delegate that to a trainer if you want to. Not that I think you should, but you can. But your job is to build their confidence. And I knew you could do it. I knew you could. And if you hadn't, so what? Big deal. It's nothing bad would have happened. You know, they would never have engaged us again to go and speak at that group. Well, that's fair enough. But so what? There's other groups. But I knew you wouldn't. I knew you'd do okay. And I'm sure you just think to yourself, driving back, that was great, but I could have done this or I could have done that. And if I'd have been there to smother it or say, well, you should, it's just not the same. You've got to be a self-actuator when it comes to personal development.
Okay.
Very much so.
So the next point is, I think, something that you've done with me my whole entire life. Yeah. And as a 6-year-old, it's irritating. But as an adult, it is definitely a different way of going it, which is, so this is how you do that with somebody, how you help them guide outside their comfort zone, right?
I noticed earlier, we have our granddaughter here today because we're carers. And I noticed Nan speaking to a little one and doing exactly the same thing. So little one's going, why? And mom's going, well, why do you think? I just thought it was magnificent. So early.
As a child, so infuriating because you just wanted the answer. But it does encourage you to go and get the answer yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah, but sometimes as a boss, people see you as the easy way forward. I know, I'll go and ask the boss, right? And it's quick, you know, if you expedite it, and sometimes you have to expedite things. Sometimes it's very important to make a very quick decision and you don't have time to mull around and coach people. It's right, do that then. Do that. We're good. But not all the time, because people don't develop then. They just take what you've told them and do it. We like to think that it resonates and sticks with them. Probably doesn't. What sticks is when it's your responsibility. So if you say, what should we do? Well, the answer is, well, okay, Kirsty, let's just a real role play before the end of the show. Let's do this. Come to me with any half-assed question you like.
Mike, I'm struggling. People are mocking my shirt choices on the show, and I'm not sure what to do about it.
See what you did there. Okay. Well, what do you think you should do about it then?
I mean, I don't know. Shirts aren't my thing, so I could go with some marvelous headwear that would make me stand out.
I think you should do that then. Ta-da! That's it, really. Right? Now, if you know that they've made a bad decision, you still do it by questions. That's interesting. So what do you think would happen if you wore bad headgear then, I might say?
There's no such thing.
We don't have to go through the role play.
No.
But you can lead people. What do you think the consequence of that is? Have you thought about this and what about the other? So there's things you can do to guide people, but ultimately let them reach the decision and say, let's do that then. And then if it goes wrong, well, you tried your best. Why don't we just have a look at it and see if we can fix it? And then you can learn. You won't do that again. Also,
I think that's a really key point. Just let me, before you go on to it, is that so if success happens, great, congratulate them. They're very proud of themselves. They came up with themselves. They have the ownership over the success. But if failure happens, don't let them be there by themselves. Go with them and say,
absolutely not. No.
Right, let's go through what happened.
Rob Miles made a good point, really. You are responsible. You are responsible. You've let them make that decision, encouraged them to make that decision. Mm-hmm. So if it goes wrong, you are there to help them sort it out. And again, though, I wouldn't do that thing like somebody I live with does when you're doing something wrong in the kitchen and pushes you aside to do it. No. If it goes wrong, well, okay, what went wrong here then? Why do you think that happened? What could we have done differently? Engage people in the solution and they'll own it. And then you're starting to build a scalable business, you know. When in 10 years, when it's 7 years, the first business I had, it didn't matter whether I went to work or not. I kid you not. Didn't matter. People did things just because day in, day out, all that we've covered today. Yeah. You know, we didn't make a big deal out of it today. Like, you know, who came on something that says lazy is good for your business? I'm not going to that. It's rubbish. Probably our bad for labeling it up. What we've talked about today is crucial if you want to scale your business up. Massively so. Have we got time for a couple of quick questions?
We have got a couple of questions here. So, Rob's made an excellent point. I feel if you're employing people to do a job and they're smart, let them do it.
Yes, employ people cleverer than you. That's what I think. In my case, seriously, that's not difficult. Never has been. So I was in awe of people coming to my business in the first place, and cleverer people come in. He's thinking, oh, It's awesome. We want to do this. Well, you should then. Absolutely. Off you go.
But things happen quicker when you let people do that as well, don't they?
Much
things
quicker,
happen
yeah.
a lot
Much
quicker than
quicker.
you would do.
You just can't abdicate. That's all.
Pete's got a good one here. Everything's a learning opportunity. So if you encourage that belief within a business, whether it's you as a failure to delegate, or it's a lesson. Whether somebody does something, they learn a lesson.
Fortune cookies again, hasn't he?
Well, he does like Chinese, doesn't he?
He read that, didn't he? I think
He
he's absolutely right. You're absolutely bang on, Pete. Yeah, you're good.
And then the final comment before I do a roundup is I just want to end on that. No one's mentioned anything about the shirt today, Mike. I'm saying there's just been a couple of things about the headwear. That's all I'm putting in there.
Say, Mike Yarwood used to do. He was an impersonator from the service in the 80s, and he used to do Ted Heath, a Tory politician, and he used to do Ted Heath going like that. Caught myself doing that earlier.
It's an interesting life that we've got going on. Right. Okay. So I think this has been a really good chat today. So we started by talking about how being lazy is great for your business, but in actual fact, what we mostly spoke about today is delegation and how to make sure that your team is allowed to grow and flourish so that you can focus on the things that only you can do within your business, as a business leader, whether that's, the forecasting, whether it's figuring out where you want to go, whether it's planning the organization at a higher level. You let everybody below you do the things that they can do, and you do the things that only you can do. And sometimes when that happens, those people might do it better than you might have done. It's going to happen that way. In order to do that, you do have to allow people to fail, whether that is a little bit or a little bit more, but you can do it in a controlled environment. And the way that we encourage people to do that is, first of all, learn how to delegate properly. Don't abdicate. Make sure that you do it purposely. And please let us know if you're interested in us getting a head of delegation, a king of delegation on the show. We're desperately going to try to, because he's got some excellent points on how to do that. Secondly, get to know your people, know where their limits are, know what they're capable of, understand what their potential is and how they can grow into that, and then encourage them to do that. Give them opportunities where if they fail, it's either not going to be a huge problem or it just slows down things a little bit. Don't let them fail in any way that's going to be catastrophic. Maybe ask them questions and veer them off course, which is the third thing. Is don't tell them what to do. Ask them until they get to a point where you think that's a good boy to fail, or that's a great solution. Is that a decent roundup, Mike?
Absolutely, Doodly. Couldn't have done it better myself. Well, who's on the show next week?
So next week, it's just you and me, Mike, but we're going to be talking about something that I know particularly a lot of people struggle with informing their younger staff or less experienced staff. We're going to talk about gatekeepers and how to get around them. And at the moment, I know the gatekeepers are definitely earning their keep at the moment, so that should be.
Let's get some gatekeepers on the show. Let's get some gatekeepers on the show. Okay, guys. Well, thanks again, Kirsty, for doing the usuals, and we'll see you all next week.